Welcome to Pumpkin Corner Nursery. On Instagram, you'll find me at Pumpkin Corner Nursery. And on Facebook, you'll find me at On Canvas. Either group, I am showing my reborns and my art. And I also created myself some logos last night. And here you can see me starting to put various shapes into my sponges for modeling and for my painting. So stay tuned, and I will share more as I get to each part of the process of reborning. I hope you enjoy this video. Good evening. It's late evening now, and I'm just gonna share some of the things that I do when I get ready to officially start reborning a kit. So I paint using the air dry paint process. As much as I have learned, I try to implement that consistently and improve the steps and techniques that I use. And then every time I start a new baby, I try to rewatch what I learned so I can practice the techniques, because if you take a break too long, sometimes you forget the technique and what works best. So sometimes I have to rewatch tutorials just to bring back to my memory what it's supposed to look like and what I'm supposed to be doing, and the correct tools to use to get the results that you want, right? So I'm just going to share some of my supplies that I will be using when I reborn my next kit. So when I reborn the Reborn Christopher Asleep that I bought from Bountiful Baby, I'm going to be using the Folk Art Outdoor Matte Varnish. I'm going to be using that. I always use that to start off. Sometimes I use paint brushes when I'm matte varnish. And I'm also going to be using these sponges that I plucked. And here's some sponges that I plucked with a different pattern. And then sometimes I keep a set of these sponges, makeup sponges, because they help me to keep lint and dust off of my kit and to smooth some things out sometimes. The tweezers, these are what I use to pluck the patterns into the sponges. And here are some other sponge patterns that I made today. So I took about a couple hours and just plucked sponges, because sometimes you go through the sponges kind of quickly, especially when you're air dry painting and you're using matte varnish on top of it. That varnish can get caked up, so you want to make sure you have enough fresh sponges to keep moving. And I have different size sponges, or modeling sponges, or makeup beauty blenders. I don't know why I keep saying body blenders, but beauty blenders. And then at the end of my process, when I get to the very last stage of the reborning process, I come back with this ultra matte AK varnish. And I've been using this for I think my last two kits I used this. And it brings like a softness. It's still matte varnish, but it brings like a softness to the kit and I think it gives it a more realistic look. Sometimes you want to have toothpicks on hand so that you can get off any specks or things that appear on your kit as you're going. I often wear a mask when I'm using the matte varnish, because sometimes it has a strong smell, and if I don't open the windows, or especially now that the temperature has dropped, I'm probably going to wear a mask when I use the matte varnish. I also have a ceramic plate, and I think I'm gonna get a couple more of these tomorrow. But I have a ceramic plate that I use to put the matte varnish on when I first start. My paints, I put them in containers with tops on those, so I'll talk about that when I get to that process. But this ceramic plate I use and put matte varnish on it. I put a little bit of water in there, mix it together, and I start varnishing my kit and patting, put it on and pounce it off. Put it on, pounce it off. And you got to move quickly because it air dries quickly. I have a couple bottles of water. So you don't want to use tap water. You want to make sure that you're using distilled water. So I make sure I keep distilled water on hand so that there are no other chemicals and things mixing with my varnish or my paints. That's going to possibly cause the paint to not adhere to the baby, the kit. So tomorrow I will probably do my first matte varnish coat on the baby and get in all the crevices, make sure I get in the creases of the skin, make sure I get in between the toes, in between the fingers, the lips, any dimples, any deep areas inside the ears, behind the ears, get everywhere I can in every nook and cranny of that baby, so that when I start painting, the paint will adhere and become one with the kit. And so you'll get a skin look, because you don't want the doll to look the baby to look painted. You want it to look like skin. So that's the goal, to give it the most realistic appearance possible. So anyway, that's what I wanted to talk about. And also I have some paper towels on my hand. I keep paper towels on hand. I take a couple of strips off and keep that so that I can wipe off my paintbrushes or dab my sponges. If you get too much paint or varnish or whatever you're using, if you get too much of it, you can always have paper towel handy to dab off and just make things even. I also keep me some syringes around, so if I want to measure out how much liquids I'm using, how much water I'm using, I keep these on hand. I also have these this time with distilled water in them too, so that I can add drops of water a little bit at a time, because you don't want to oversaturate what you're trying to do, because you want it to work. You don't want to thin your paint out too much. You don't want to thin out your varnish too much. So that's pretty much it right now. I'm also going to use what I learned in my studies in my tutorials, and I'm going to give my paints and varnishes a right amount of time to dry. For air dry paint, they suggest about 30 minutes in between each layer. I'm gonna make sure I give it 30 plus minutes, because I really want to see improvements in my skin tone, in the realism that I'm trying to create on the baby. So hopefully each time, what I notice is each time I make a new baby, it looks better than the last one before. So we're going to hope that I keep that trend up and that this baby looks better. And I'm really hoping that I have is less amount of errors or corrections as possible. And pretty much that's it. Enjoy your evening. While I was talking, I called these sponges, but these are makeup brushes.